Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving into something huge: India's ambitious mission to become a global semiconductor powerhouse. We're going to break down why this is all happening right now, just how crazy complicated this industry is, and the really clever strategy they're using to pull it off.
So, to really get a handle on what India is doing, you have to start with this one big question. How on earth did a tiny little slice of silicon become as vital to our world as oil was to the last century? Well, the answer really boils down to a single word: power. In today's geopolitical game, the countries that control the supply of these chips, this new global currency, they're the ones who hold all the cards. This quote just nails it. It's all about what's called a silicon shield. It's not about having the biggest army anymore. It's about making yourself so essential to the rest of the world that your safety becomes everyone's problem. Now that's real power. Think about it like this. Back in the day, steel was the foundation for everything. Well, today, semiconductors are that foundation. Your car, your phone, even a fighter jet, none of it works without a chip. So if you can't get the chips, you can't build anything modern. It's simple. Control the chips, and you have a say over the entire global manufacturing supply chain. Okay, so we've established why they're so important, but what does it actually take to make one of these things? This is where it gets wild. People often call this the single most complex manufacturing process humanity has ever invented. The whole thing breaks down into three main stages. First, you have the design. That's literally creating the architectural blueprint. Then comes fabrication, or what everyone in the industry calls fab. That's the actual manufacturing. And finally, you have a stage called ATMP, which is all about packaging the chip up so you can actually use it. And that AMT step is so critical. Think of the raw chip as a tiny, exposed brain. AMT is what gives it a skull and a body. It's where they slice up the silicon wafer, attach these microscopic wires, and wrap the whole thing in a protective shell so it can handle electricity and heat. Without AMT, the chip is just a fragile piece of art you can't do anything with. And to really wrap your head around the kind of precision we're talking about in fabrication, just picture trying to etch the entire Encyclopedia Britannica, plus another 20 books, onto a single leaf from a tree. The level of detail is it's almost impossible to even imagine. To get to that level of detail, you need something like 500 different highly specialized chemicals and gases. It's an unbelievably complex chemical dance. And here's the kicker. It's not just the sheer number of chemicals, it's their purity. We're not talking parts per million, we're talking parts per billion. That's like finding a single bad grain of sand on an entire beach. The absolute tiniest impurity can completely destroy a multi-million-dollar batch of chips. So with all that insane complexity and the incredibly high stakes, how does a country even start to get into this business? Well, that brings us to India's very specific, very calculated plan. India's entire plan really starts with a massive strategic advantage that they already have. And that advantage is summed up by this number: 20%. So what's that 20%? That's the share of the entire world's chip designers who are already based in India. You see, while India hasn't been a big name in manufacturing, it's secretly been a design superpower for years. The whole strategy is to build its manufacturing muscle on top of this incredibly strong foundation of talent that's already there. Okay, the next piece of the strategy is all about understanding the market. It's not just about making the tiniest, fastest, most cutting-edge chips. Turns out, roughly half of the entire market is for what they call legacy nodes. These are the slightly older but absolutely vital workhorse chips that are in our cars, our TVs, and even our military equipment. And right there, that's the genius of the strategy. Instead of trying to jump into the deep end and compete on the bleeding edge right away, the plan is to start with a huge, profitable, and way more manageable slice of the market. It just takes so much risk out of the equation. You master the process here, you capture this massive market, and then you start climbing the ladder to the more advanced stuff. But a smart strategy on paper is one thing. Actually pulling it off is something else entirely. Building one of these fabs isn't just about the tech. It's about navigating a minefield of real-world challenges that could sink the whole mission. What's so impressive is that the mission planners saw these problems coming from a mile away. I mean, a tiny 1% flicker in the power can ruin everything. The vibration from a truck passing by miles down the road can ruin a batch.
The water has to be purer than anything you'd find in nature. So for every single one of these potential disasters, they engineered a solution right from the start, from dedicated power grids to building plants in super isolated spots. And finally, it's so important to get that this is not a short-term plan. This isn't just about building one or two factories. It's about planting an entire industrial forest, an ecosystem that can grow and support itself for decades to come. The real focus here isn't just on the fabs that make the final chips. As this quote shows, the goal is to build the entire ecosystem. That means getting the companies that make the complex machines, the ones that produce those 500 specialty chemicals, all of it. It's a 25-year plan for real, long-term self-reliance. And that vision is global too, because no country can do this alone, right? The strategy involves creating these deep partnerships with Japan for materials, with the EU for research, with countries in Africa and Australia for the essential minerals. The whole point is to make India a totally reliable, trusted partner in a brand new, more resilient global supply chain. So that leaves us with the big question. The blueprint is smart. The foundation of incredible talent is already there. The execution has been planned down to this smallest detail. But this is, without a doubt, one of the toughest, most competitive industries on the planet. All the pieces are in place, but the next decade will be the real test of whether India can truly become the world's next semiconductor superpower.